Before we ever, in Marston, one of our initiatives, ongoing initiatives is safety. Safety is extremely important to us, so we'd like to start off the conversation with a safety moment. We all know that this technology right here has been good for us, but it's also a detriment to us. The National Safety Council has talked specifically about cell phones. So they've done a lot of surveys showing that nearly 36% of the respondents in their survey experience walking distracted by their phones. Prime example of that could be a student, right? Matt's on the phone, he's talking to his friend, right? Hey, Joe, did you get your, you see? So it's really important for us to understand, never walk and talk with our phones, if at all possible. If you're gonna stop and text, then stop and text and move out of an aisleway or out of traffic. And never cross the street using a electronic device. These are some of the 3 key things that have come from the National Safety Council. So let me go here first. My name is Dennis Boyd. I'm Marston Services Healthcare Subject Matter Expert. I have almost 40 years of experience directly related to healthcare. I'm a former ICP, that's an infectious control practitioner. I use a lot of acronyms. In healthcare, we have over about 1,500 different acronyms we use, so just slap me if you want to know what one of those acronyms mean. Things I'm proud of in my career is actually architecting a lot of things that have directly related to patient safety outcomes. And including our organization, which has received a couple of national innovation awards as a result of a lot of things that we're doing directly related to what we're going to talk about today. So I'll turn it over to Tony. Before Tony speaks, Tony joined our organization several years ago, and really I've been involved with remediation and emergency services over my entire career. And I can tell you that Tony, not being biased because he's a member of Marston, but this is one of the most intelligent individuals in our organization and one of the most intelligent individuals you'll find within the remediation and emergency services. So Tony, go ahead.
I wish I was a better fisherman than restoration. Other than that, Tony Fowler, I'm Vice President of Marston Restoration, subject matter expert for Marston for Emergency Services, and I've been in the restoration industry over 25 years now, and started as the guy tearing down the burnt house, and trash guy, and worked my way up. Through that, I've obviously encountered a lot of different things. Every single project is a little bit different, so you have to really know how to protect yourself and your employees, and how to walk into a chaotic situation that's an emergency, a fire, flood, hurricane, pandemic even, and know how to protect your employees, to look for what questions to ask. So I feel very fortunate that I've been able to kind of grow up in this industry, and especially when the pandemic hit, Dennis and I worked very, very closely together because a lot of the protocols that we had in place for mold, asbestos, bloodborne pathogens, the different types of viruses that we can come across, the hantavirus, rotavirus, and things like that. A lot of the protocols we implemented into our company COVID cleaning protocols. So I'm going to let Dennis talk about some more of those things, but it's an honor to talk to you guys, and sorry I couldn't be there. So I'll get back to Dennis.
All right. Thanks, Tony. So real quickly, just a little bit about our organization. I won't go into a lot. We're a full facilities services organization. Our industries that we're experts in, specifically education, healthcare, commercial, industrial, biotech, manufacturing. And all of the things you're going to learn today, really we've implemented, and Tony spoke of that. Tony's been really has been the champion for us, particularly during the pandemic. and instituting those protocols across the entire platform. We're across the United States. We're under a lot of different brand names when we acquire a company. Unlike other groups, we keep that company name because it has community value. So we don't want to change that name of that particular operating company in that community. We think that's really key to our branding. So today, we're really going to talk about how do we break the chain of infection. So these are some of the objectives. We're going to define standard precautions. These are really defined by CDC. We're going to we'll talk about appropriate disinfecting methods. We're going to understand the chain of infection itself. Identifying high-touch objects. That's really key and important, particularly in our school environments, because we have a lot of students, we have a lot of faculty. We're touching a lot of touch points. How often are we supposed to clean and disinfect? There are certain protocols to doing that. And the last point here is validate outcomes. And Tony's really going to speak to that more than myself because he was the champion. He was on the ground, particularly when we were doing a lot of COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2 related cleanings there. So why is disinfecting important? I'd like this to be interactive here. What do you guys think? Why do you think disinfecting is important? Any comments? Very good. Excellent. Absolutely. When we disinfect and clean, we stop, and I'll show you the chain here in a minute. Disinfecting procedures are crucial in controlling the spread and transfer of microorganisms between people and surfaces. Not only as people can spread it, sneezing, influenza, common colds, all of that usually is spread through sneezing, right? How many times do people sneeze into their hands and then go ahead and touch a surface? Well, then it can transfer onto that surface, correct? So in order to limit the number of stakeholder sick days, I don't have a lot of statistics on sick days, but I can tell you they're unimaginable, the number of sick days that we have every year from just the common cold. In the United States, every year, we have over 1 billion cases of the common cold. 1 billion. So what does that mean? We only have a population of 400,000. That means people are getting multiple common cold infections during the year. How many sick days do you think we're losing off of that? It's absolutely incredible. So us as administrators, we really have a responsibility, right? To the parents, to the faculty, to our students, visitors, to ensure that our facilities are clean, they're sanitized, and that we create a safe and healthy environment. So we're going to talk about the chain of infection, and I apologize because I do have some notes. When you get old, your photographic memory turns into a silent movie. And so I got to use some notes. So, pathogens. Pathogens or microorganisms are the start of the infection. So, anybody know what pathogens are? It's right there. Different pathogens. Those are the 3 major pathogens right there. Bacteria, fungi, and a virus. So I got a couple of notes here. So, different types of viruses. Does anybody know what different types of viruses we have? So, H1N1, right? Influenza, common cold, COVID-19. These are all types of viruses. How about bacteria? Does anybody know the different types of bacteria? E. coli. Absolutely. Listeria. Strep throat. Yep. Very good. How about fungi? Different types of fungi. Tony knows that one. Mildew, mold, rust, yeast, things of that nature. So this is really important to understand. We live in a world where there are a lot of pathogens. There's 1,400 pathogens that have been identified in the world. Do you know how many pathogens there actually is? There's more pathogens in the air right now than there are stars. There's over 1 billion pathogens in the air. So it's really important for us to understand, how do we control that? The best possible way that we can control that. So you have this, and then you have the reservoir. So either people, plants, or animals are going to be the reservoir for that pathogen. And then what do? That's the port of exit. So the port of exit is what? All of the orifices that can spread the virus itself. Means of transmission, direct contact on a surface, or I sneeze, airborne. Okay? Where does that port of entry? Right here. We either inhale it or we ingest it, because we're either touching that surface that has it or it's in the air and we're breathing it in. Who's most susceptible? Those that are immunocompromised. Do you know that 99% of all the hospitalizations in the US due to COVID-19, those individuals had either 1 to 4 pre-existing health conditions that compromised their immunity system? 99%. So those are the people that are most vulnerable. So how do we break that chain of infection? Clean and disinfect. First way to break that chain of infection is to clean and disinfect. Tony, you want to chime in here?
Right. So, on the cleaning and disinfecting side of things, we have a protocol. We created a protocol, again, based on what we've used in the past for different phases of this, that we catered it all to cleaning and disinfecting. And the first point is using the right product. Right? The product has to be labeled, has to be tested, has to have the efficacy on what you're trying to kill or disinfect, I guess. So having a product that is safe to your people to use, but having enough, you can get everything else. But the right product is really the first key. You can't expect Windex to do the same job as, say, a Lysol type thing. So that's one thing. The very next thing is the dwell time of that product. I think Dennis touched on that a little bit earlier. You have to make sure that you're reading the directions in that product is staying on the surface long enough to do its job. Right? And that was a big point of training for our people, even though a lot of them already do that, is to retrain it. Having the right product and paying attention to the dwell time, because you have something in a 2-minute dwell time or a 10-minute dwell time. And you can imagine that if somebody wiping something off, you're using a product that takes 10 minutes to fully do its job. It's pretty hard to keep something wet for 10 minutes consistently, right? Without the air starting to dry it out, unless you're soaking that area. Preventing the cross-contamination. Overusing a towel, a microfiber towel, or a wipe for too long, you're picking up too much, and you're essentially spreading things around. So, paying attention to that. In the restoration industry, we almost exclusively use wipes because wipes force our people to continually change, because they start to dry out. They can feel that. They have to continually change that wipe, and they continually, so they're not cross-contaminating. And speaking of dwell time and clinical surfaces, a lot of what Dennis and I were being asked to perform during the pandemic was fogging. We've all heard of the fogging of the buildings and things like that, using an electrostatic sprayer or other type of fogging. In our opinions and our industrial hygienists opinions and everything else, the fogging is not, it's a good way to apply a chemical, but it amounts to having a dirty sink and spraying Lysol in it and just not wiping the sink out. You really do have to agitate the surface. You know, you may spray the Lysol in the sink and it may kill some of the stuff in the sink, but if you don't have a clean sink and you still have things that are sitting in there that the Lysol hasn't touched because they're not agitated across the surface. So agitation of the surface is a very important thing, not cross-contaminating. And then really following that up with documentation and validation. We use the Genia ATP testers. And for those of you who don't know what an ATP tester is, it stands for adenosine triphosphate. And what we're essentially doing is we're trying to clean all of the adenosine triphosphate, all of the molecules off of that surface, because that's in every single living cell. So it's a pretty good representation of the overall ecology of that surface. If we can show that we are below 20 or a food and beverage standard, then that's when we felt that we were clean on that surface, and we can validate that and document that at that date and time throughout that facility that we were cleaning, right? And we would randomly pick spots on the map, and we would about one test for every 150 to 200 square feet, and we would randomly test the surface. Usually going to be one of the surfaces that's a high touch area. So again, for us, it was using the right product the right way, agitating the surface the correct way without cross-contaminating, and then documenting for us and our clients at this date and time, these surfaces were cleaned to this standard according to the ATP meters, so that our clients have documentation, we can have documentation, and everybody can do a good job.
So thanks, Tony.
Anybody? Those versions of what we do for 10 hours a day. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Go ahead.
The person who's wiping those chemicals and spreading them before they get you a cleaning, how does it affect that person who's doing it? Don't they have to have their shots and everything so that they won't become affected putting the chemicals out as we go cleaning throughout the building or whatever like that?
So we talk about that with the tools right here. Yeah, and that's one of the things that Tony really championed during this whole process, because we learned during the process of all the fogging and things like that your employees will always be susceptible to the pathogens and the stuff that you're putting in the air. So proper PPE is really critical anytime that you're using any kind of disinfectants. So you want to make sure they have safety glasses, gloves, disposable gowns. Those are where applicable. So if you're spraying anything, you want to make sure too they have some kind of disposable gown on that they can take off. Otherwise, all that stuff that you're spraying in the air. And remember, stuff that you're spraying in the air, and this is one of the things that Tony discovered because he was championing all of our work. So you hear about all the electrostatic spraying, right? So you're electrostatic spraying, but what's in the air? There are pathogens in the air. So all of that stuff that's going through the air eventually comes down, but it's in the air and you're breathing the air. So not only are you breathing the product itself, but you're breathing the stuff because the aerosols in the chemical is actually capturing pathogens that are in the air as well. So wearing face mask, wearing gloves, all of that stuff is really critical. Anytime that you're cleaning with any kind of disinfectant or spraying any kind of disinfectant.
And what do you clean with? You get the doorway stuff as you go, or a rag, or?
So these are some of the disinfecting tools that we use. We've moved to all microfiber technology. Not anymore. We do not use paper towels anymore for cleaning. The reason is the paper towels themselves. If you ever done a laser light on them after you used them, you'll see all of the fibers from the paper towel in the air. So we've eliminated using paper towels. Everything is done now through microfiber cloths.
Like towels, paper towels, or nothing at all, just put the water on it.
Because now you have colored microfiber. So you can have a blue one for all of your glass and stainless steel. You can have a yellow one for all of your restroom use. You can have a red one for, I don't know, Tony, you know this more than I do. Red and green have certain types of applications. So when you color code those, your staff uses just those color coded microfibers for that application. Go ahead, James.
The microfiber, after they use them, the house cleaner or staff, red, green, whatever.
Yeah.
They all end up in a washing machine. They're all combined. So are they being disinfected, or are we cross-contaminating by not using all the greens or yellows or reds?
Depends on how you launder them. If you're laundering them correctly in 162 plus degrees, then you're killing all of the microorganisms that are on it. So it doesn't matter whether you mix them or not. The only time that you want to separate microfiber usage is if you were cleaning up bodily fluids, because that would fall under bloodborne pathogens. Some of those actually get destroyed if you're cleaning up blood. Certain amounts of blood, if it's just a small drop of blood, then you're okay. But if you have a mass amount of blood, usually all that will go into biohazard and get incinerated. That's correct.
One last question to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Microfiber great, but our campuses, we let them air dry.
Okay.
Is that an accepted policy or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The reason we like to air dry, and we do them both ways, and it depends on their usage. Air drying is good because when you're constantly drying them at high temperature, that starts to destroy the fibers that are in the mic. So sometimes it's a combination. In our OR suite environments, we're required by regulation to run them through the dryer. It's an extra layer of temperature to make sure that the microorganisms are deactivated on that. Yes.
When you spray the chemical around the mirrors and the metal of the area, it dries. So is it clean? Because they sprayed the chemical, this stuff to supposed to disinfect the area. Is it clean, or you gotta wipe it off?
So, Tony, I'll let you chime in here, but one of the things I've learned over 40 years being in healthcare and following CDC guidelines is that without mechanical movement, you can't deactivate the pathogen. And there's a lot of misunderstanding, and I'll give you an example of this. So you see this little packet here from Clorox? It says kills 99.9% of viruses. Do you know that you cannot kill a virus? A virus does not have cells. It's not a living thing. So how can you kill it? So what we do when we clean and disinfect viruses, what we do is we deactivate. We deactivate their vitality, their ability to have contagiousness or transmissible characteristics. Okay? You can read any scientific study on viruses and they'll tell you that most scientists believe that they're not a living thing because they're not made up of cells. There's other types of things like bacteria, fungi, things of that do have cells, and those are the things that you kill, but viruses don't. They're not made up of cells, so they're not living things. This is why it's really important for us when we're cleaning and disinfecting our environments, we're doing it the proper way to create the most healthy environment. One of the things we try and teach our staff members too is to eliminate as much chemical that's going in the air so they don't breathe that. So we have our staff members actually spray all their chemicals on their cloths and then wipe down, because we really don't want that stuff in the air for them to breathe. Until COVID-19, we discovered even internally ourselves that a lot of our staff were not wearing masks when they were in areas where they were spraying chemicals. And then we were creating an unhealthy environment for them. So now you're not allowed to spray on chemicals without using facial protection.
I'm sorry, so when you're doing high point touch cleaning and that, your staff is wearing masks?
Yes, and they're spraying in their cloths when we're doing the high touch stuff. And if you notice with all of the mask mandate types of conversations that we've had, it's been a challenge because our people have gone through what we call COVID-19 fatigue, right? They've been wearing their masks for 8 hours a day, all day long. And it's been very challenging for us to keep their masks on when they're spraying chemicals. But we want to make sure that when they're spraying those chemicals that we're protecting them.
Well, that's only in hospitals and stuff that they clean like this guy on the picture.
Yeah, and I think in any environment that you're in, whether it be in a hospital or be it a school or be it a commercial office building, anytime your employees are spraying any type of chemicals, you want to make sure they have some kind of facial protection on. It's a little bit different too in healthcare because we have the microfiber cloths actually in chemical and they're not re-put inside that chemical. So you put your chemical bucket here, you put your cloths in there, and then you just take them out, and then when you're done with them, you dispose of them. So we're not doing a lot of spraying of that. That ideally would be the right way to do it. Just have them fill up their chemical bucket, put their rags in that, and then just take the rag out and clean, and then dispose of that rag and not put that rag back into. That would be ideal. And that's one of the things that Tony and his team were very religious about. Doing when we were doing our COVID-19 cleans. But these are great questions. Awesome questions.
Is that a hazard? Is that considered a hazard job? They should get a hazard pay for putting that stuff out.
That's another great question because I think Tony ran into this when he was out in there. A lot of our staff were, I'll let you comment, Tony, on that. She's asking the question that if our employees are using these type of chemicals, are we required to pay them hazardous pay?
Yeah, I mean, the chemicals that they are using are just disinfectants. And so, though they got a ton of overtime because they were flying around the country doing all kinds of stuff, and we would clean the facility and during that day, so we could clear it that day. There wasn't actually hazardous materials that we were that were any different than what we would normally do, right? So our employees didn't get hazard pay, though they did get a lot of overtime and bonuses and things like that. They weren't just the chemicals they were using were just disinfectants that are easily bought now. They were not easily bought during COVID. Those were like gold, the disinfectants, and the stronger ones have lower filters. So hopefully that answers that question.
I think, let me follow up on that question again. I think I understand what you're saying also. Not in a hospital environment, but in a school environment. So our general housekeepers, male, female, whatever, even students, are doing high point touch cleaning. Doorknobs, handles, so on and forth. Classrooms building now. It's the chemicals that we're using constantly. Might be just Lysol. So, it's a norm in the standard. You're not wearing a mask or in your company, but you're talking hospitals. We're talking schools.
Yeah, we're talking anywhere where an individual is going into an environment and they're doing something other than they're spraying a chemical. They're misting or they're spraying some type of chemical. Yeah.
You're after hours. You're talking
doing
a spray or fogging in this environment when nobody's around.
Yeah.
But I think what we're talking about is general during the course of a day, right?
Yes, the run of the day. We deal with students here at UNF before and after they go home. we're putting the chemical out, and then some of them are still here till 3 a.m. in the morning, and we're spraying and cleaning. But do that cause that problem of I know we got the chemicals, but are those safe chemicals that we're using going around doing it? Or is it hazard? We should get a hazard pay because we're putting those chemicals out. Because those students are from everywhere, all over the world here doing that. And we go around and spray and wipe, and it can affect us as well as them. So should we get like a hazard pay for putting the chemical out that we use? I don't think it's effective because we don't do the right things like you all are saying we do. We have a paper towel or a rag, or we don't do what we're supposed to do to make sure that things are safe.
And well, it's great questions you brought up, and it's one of the reasons we're having this kind of conversation today, because we're trying to present some of the best practices to keep our employees safe. And it's one of the reasons why we ask our employees not to spray chemicals in the air, but spray them on your rag rather than spray them in the air. Because if you spray them in the air, you have that opportunity to breathe in that stuff. If you just take your rag here and spray it on your rag, it's a lot different. Those aerosol droplets are not going in the air where they can breathe. All of these chemicals, could potentially have some effect. And as Tony illustrated, if you have the proper PPE on your staff, they're going to be safe. Make sure they have gloves on. Yeah, exactly. You can see in the picture here, and you can see that the employee here is spraying into the cloth. That's the most effective way to keep your environment safe too, because remember, if you're spraying in the air, where is those droplets going? They're going into your ventilation system. They're going into the air. I was just at a demonstration here in the exhibit hall. Guy's doing his little thing with his misting, right? And then he shines the little light on it, the laser light on it, and you can see all. Just remember, there are pathogens in the air. So all of that stuff that's going in there is attaching those pathogens, and we're breathing those. So we have to be very cautious. It's all nice and well that we got all of these pretty things that are going on, but the efficacies that we've tested in all this innovation, give you an example. We do Target Center. It's where the Twins play, right? So it's all an outdoor stadium. And we went to a manufacturer that said, hey, if you spray all this stuff on your seats, you're going to be golden, and you don't even have to touch it, for, 2 months or something like that. A product called Protect or something, Protect All. Yeah, I can't remember the full name of it. So we started to do ATP testing on it. What you didn't realize is all that stuff goes in the air, captures the pathogens, and comes back down on the surface. So what's back on the surface? Pathogens. That's why it's really important that you use mechanical movement, because that's how you really inactivate the pathogens. That's why your ATP testing goes from, here's an example. Tony did testing. We tested before, and this is just an example. Say the meter said 3,300 before we did the spray. We did the spray and it went down to 2,200. And then we did the mechanical movement and we got below 10. So that'll tell you that mechanical movement is really critical and important. That's why you're going around and you're wiping touch points and you're just not spraying chemical on them. It's that mechanical movement that's actually deactivating the pathogen.
No filters in the AC unit. There's one on the top of the building. So whatever's blowing down, 8 hours later, it's dusty because it's just picking it up. So what's the point of doing all of that? And we don't have the right filter, can't spray in the air. So we really have to be cautious at all times.
That's why we do it every day. It's exactly why we clean and disinfect every single day. We're getting close on my time here. So just how often? It's important to match disinfecting activities to the types of pathogens you want to deactivate or destroy. I can, just real quickly, folks, I'm going to give you some influenza numbers. Let's put COVID aside and just talk about influenza year over year over year. We have average about 20 to 25 million cases of influenza every single year. Those are symptomatic cases. You talk about 100 per 100,000 every single year of influenza. Right now, the numbers of COVID sit at, I just did them this morning, we sit at about 65.2 cases per 100,000 for COVID. Influenza is sitting at about 5.2 cases per 100,000 right now. Almost influenza because of all the work that we're doing as a society right now. Think about that. All the things we're doing as a society, we have helped our situation with influenza. The numbers are astounding over the last 2 years of how we've been able to control influenza. So, you know, it's kind of really important to understand all the things that we're doing well. And you guys you're doing some awesome things. There's things we can continue to do better to create the most effective environment. And it's a combination of things. It's not only the cleaning stuff that we're doing today, but it's what are we doing with our air? How are we managing just like you said, how are we managing the air movement through and we have a lot of clean air technology that's going on. One of the things our organization, this is the last thing, and you all know all the touch points, right? Innovation. We have to create a sustainable environment. It's the only way that we're going to be able to go in the future. Look, we've had Zika. We've had SARS. This is a evolution of SARS, what we have today. It's just another derivative of that. We've had H1N1, the bird flu, right? We've had HIV, AIDS. There are things that are not curable, right? We know that there's just things that are not curable for us. And so we have to create the best. So we got to improve also productivity, because the cost of labor is going up. So you got to have some type of innovation to help with the labor as well. And then we have an environmental accountability, right? We're all talking about it. Green New Deal, all of these things that are going on. So it's really important for us to understand that it's why we're beta testing things. We're beta testing robotics right now. You know, an auto scrubber that can operate on its own and be autonomous. Think about the guy or a girl that has to run that particular and the labor cost to run that. Now you just have a piece of equipment that you can basically program to go wherever it needs to go, particularly in wide areas. Think of the labor savings of that by having somebody having an autonomous robotics thing doing that. We know that labor will never go away, but there's tools. If you integrate technology with your labor, you're going to come up with the best solutions to create the most sustainable environment. So UV technology, we've done that. Clean air, we have a partnership with that we're working on right now. BioSafe is another one we're looking at, which is basically engineered water that has proven as a disinfectant. Think about the safety of that. When you talk about your employees spraying stuff, they wouldn't even have to have any PPE using a product like BioSafe. So we're testing that, and its outcomes have been validated. So all of this technology and innovation is really important for us to understand. This is what our organization is doing. It's really critical because our customers are coming to us and saying, how do you get us from point A to point Z? Because we're in that avenue right now of the future. We really appreciate your time. I want to kind of be cognizant of your time today. Wasn't able to go over everything, but if you guys have any questions, Cindy Flappa has all of my information. I'd be glad to ask any questions. You can just email them to me or email them to Tony. Really appreciate the audience today, and thank you, Flappa, for the opportunity to be here.